In this Picmonic, spinal facet orientation and spinal motion is represented by the spine gem facets that attract some pesky bumble bums. Spinal facets are projections from the vertebrae that assist coordination and assist with movement of the spine. The orientation of the superior facets for each region of the spine can be recalled using the bumble bum mnemonic, represented by the bumble bum bumblebees pointing to different regions of the spine. The orientation of the superior facets in the neck are cervical backwards, upright, and medial, shown by the cervical cat sitting back, upward, and wearing a metal cervical collar to prevent him from himself. The surface of the superior facets of the cervical spinal faces back, up, and towards midline. The next region of the spine and its facet orientation is thoracic, backwards, upwards, and lateral, depicted by thorax sitting back, up, and on a ladder. The superior facets of the thorax are oriented backwards, upwards, and lateral. The superior facets of the last region of the spinal column are lumbar, backwards, upwards, and medial, represented as our lumberjack sitting back, upwards, and wearing metal. Facets in the lumbar spine face back, up, and medial. Our last column of characters is associated with the movements of the spine. Flexion and extension can be remembered by this man flexing with his trusty extension cord. This motion occurs in the cervical, thorax, and lumbar region, but is most noticeable in the cervical and lumbar spine, where the superior facets are oriented medially. Rotation is depicted in this Picmonic by the rotating man with his rotating spinal column. Rotation occurs in all areas of the spine and is very prominent in the cervical and thoracic spine. The last spinal movement is side bending, also known as lateral flexion, shown by the boy side bending and his side bent spine. This movement occurs in the coronal plane around the anterior-posterior axis and is most noticeable in the cervical and thoracic spine. So let's summarize spinal facet orientation and spinal motion. Orientation can be remembered with the bumble bum mnemonic. The cervical facets face backwards, upwards, and medially. The thoracic superior facets face backwards, upwards, and lateral, and the lumbar facets face backwards, upwards, and medial. The spine has three major motions. Flexion and extension primarily occurs in the cervical and lumbar spine. Rotation is most noticeable in the cervical and thoracic spine, and side bending occurs to the greatest degree in the cervical and thoracic spine.
These spine gem facets are attracting some little critters, causing a nuisance to the owner of the spine. See, little bumblebum bees were drawn to the gems, and now that they are in the spine, they decided to make it their home. The way they situate their little bumblebums in the facets are determined by where they are in the spine. In the cervical spine, the bumble's bum is back, up, and medial. In the thoracic, he is back, up, and lateral. And in the lumbar, the little bee is back, up, and medial again. As cute as these little bumblebums are, the owner of the spine does not appreciate all the buzz, so he calls on some reinforcements to help him out. The first is his cat, wearing a metal cervical collar. As he sits back and upward, he swats at the bee in the cervical spine, but he doesn't bulge. Next was his buddy Thorax. He climbs up a ladder to get to the thoracic bee and swings at him with his axe. But, alas, the bee stays strong. Last was the lumberjack, who tossed lumber at the lumbar bee. He was tough as nails, wearing metal, but the bee did not leave. That's when his helpful neighbor came by, flexing his muscles and returning the extension cord he borrowed.
For the rest of the story, check out Picmonic.com and sign up for a free account. There, you can also take Picmonic's quiz. The quiz automatically sets up your daily quiz by using spaced repetition algorithms based on the questions you've missed or struggled with to make sure you study what you need when you need to.
And while you're there, check out the rest of our body regions Picmonics. We've got all the content you'll need to remember. Everything from cranial 2, strain patterns, cranial motion and structural exam, sacrum motion and structural exam, sacrum 2, somatic dysfunctions of the sacrum, innominates, and so much more, so you can lock down on everything you need to know forever.
Play, quiz, and spaced repetition. Efficient, effective, and research proven to increase exam scores.